The Last of Us didn't just take over television, it infected it, spreading faster than a clicker's scream in a subway tunnel. Shoots got shut down, props went missing, and the main cast? They weren't even sure they'd survive the fan base. These are 20 weird facts about The Last of Us, and the bonus? Let's just say, one prop on set was so real, it made an actor cry. Grab your flashlight, stay quiet, and don't breathe too loud. Here we go. Fact 1. Pedro Pascal was told to forget the game. When Pedro Pascal was cast as Joel, he did what any actor would do. He booted up the PlayStation and dove into the original Last of Us game. Bad idea. According to Pascal, he got completely hooked. And then the producers told him to stop playing immediately. Why? They didn't want him mimicking the game's version of Joel. They wanted a new take. A grounded live-action version rooted in Pedro's own instincts. So he put the controller down. He said he still watched some gameplay clips here and there. But for the most part, he built his Joel in isolation. Grizzled, broken, and impossible to look away from. Fact 2. Bella Ramsey had never played the game, and never will. While Pedro Pascal stopped mid-gameplay, Bella Ramsey, who plays Ellie, never even started. The production team gave her the same warning. Don't study the game, don't imitate, just bring Ellie to life in your own way. Bella agreed, and later said that not playing the game gave her freedom to explore Ellie's vulnerability and rage without being boxed in by expectations. Gamers were skeptical at first. Then Episode 7 dropped, and they stopped complaining. Fact 3. The Cordyceps fungus is based on real science. It's not just TV horror. Cordyceps, the fungus that turns people into clickers, is very real. In nature, it infects insects. Ants, specifically, it hijacks their brains, makes them climb to high places, and then burst from their bodies to release spores. The creators of the game, Neil Druckmann and Bruce Straley, read a BBC Nature documentary about it, and thought, what if that jumped to humans? Fast forward a few years, and HBO was spending millions to recreate it on screen. Pustules, veins, shroomed out faces. Terrifying? Yes, but not fiction. Fact 4. One clicker was played by a contortionist. Those terrifying movements? They weren't all CGI. One of the most iconic clickers in Season 1, seen crawling backwards down a hallway, was played by Caitlin McCulloch, a professional contortionist and stunt performer. She trained for weeks to move like her joints had no rules, twisting her spine, jerking her limbs, and dislocating her shoulders on cue. No wires, no green screen, just nightmare fuel with a SAG card. And yes, she scared the crew more than once by popping up unexpectedly on set. Even Pedro Pascal said, "That's not acting, that's just fear." Fact 5. The giraffe scene? Totally real, no CGI, no animatronic head. That giraffe in the Season 1 finale, a real animal. Her name is Nabo. She lives in the Calgary Zoo, and yes, she was brought into a controlled green screen environment to film with Bella Ramsey. It took days of preparation. Handlers trained Nabo to eat from Bella's hand without flinching. Bella said it was the most surreal moment of the entire shoot. In a show about apocalypse and despair, this moment of wonder, completely authentic. Fact 6. One episode took 18 months to finish. Episode 3, long time, didn't just break hearts. It broke the production schedule. This standalone story of Bill and Frank was originally meant to be much shorter, but once the writers started fleshing it out, it became clear. This wasn't just backstory, this was the soul of the show. Filming alone took nearly 2 months. The edit was rebuilt multiple times, and composer Gustavo Santaolalla was brought in early to score key moments with live instrumentation on set. From the strawberries to the piano, every detail was handcrafted. By the time it aired, critics were calling it one of the greatest TV episodes of the decade. And the crew? They were just glad it was finally finished. Fact 7. Ellie's joke book is based on a real book. That pun-filled book Ellie reads from throughout Season 1? Not a prop. It's based on a real-world Australian joke book called No Pun Intended. Volume 2. The writers got permission to adapt and replicate the humor from the game, which had already adapted the real book's tone. Some lines were lifted directly from Naughty Dog's script. Others were added fresh for the show. Bella Ramsey said they kept cracking up mid-take, especially during, "Did you hear about the guy who invented lifesavers?" Turns out, in a world full of fungus monsters, dad jokes survive. Fact 8. The Boston QZ was shot in Canada. When Joel and Ellie walk through the ruins of Boston's quarantine zone, it looks like the end of the world. But in reality, it's Calgary, Alberta, dressed up with vines, grime, and digital destruction. The production team scouted over a dozen cities before landing on Calgary. Why? Because of its brutal winter weather, neutral-toned architecture, and cooperative government that allowed major street closures. Whole blocks were shut down for weeks. Digital artists then removed modern signs, added moss and rubble, and dropped and collapsed skyscrapers frame by frame. So yeah, Boston never looked better or worse. Fact 9. Troy Baker, original Joel, still got his moment. You might recognize the voice of Joel from the video games, but in episode 8, you see him. Troy Baker, legendary voice actor and the original Joel, plays James, a right-hand man to creepy cult leader David. It's a short but intense role, and it gave Baker a chance to pass the torch to Pedro Pascal, while also getting shot in the gut by Ellie. Classy exit. Fun fact, Baker said Pedro was terrifyingly good as Joel, and Pedro said Baker's voice gave him chills. That's mutual respect. With a side of shotgun. Fact 10, the show was nearly animated first. Before HBO said yes, The Last of Us was almost an animated series. Sony Pictures Animation considered developing it in a 3D visual style, closer to the game's aesthetics. But early tests felt too artificial. The emotion didn't land. The stakes felt lighter. Neil Druckmann, who co-created both the game and the show, pulled the plug. He said the only way to make the story land was with real people in real locations. And when HBO came knocking, he didn't hesitate. Because the end of the world, it hits different when it looks like your own. Fact 11. The clicker sounds were made by a human voice. Those unsettling clicker sounds, they weren't made in a lab. They weren't digitally warped. They were made by Misty Lee, a voice actor and magician. Yes, magician. She perfected a technique using the back of her throat and tongue and diaphragm to create the iconic click-click-crack noise. It's not mechanical. It's not layered. It's one woman doing biological horror with her own mouth. When the showrunners tried using CGI clicker sounds, it just didn't work. So they called Misty. And when she demonstrated in the studio, everyone flinched. Some monsters don't need VFX. They just need a good throat technique. Fact 12. Storm Reid was cast for one reason: honesty. Episode 7 gave us Riley, Ellie's best friend, her first love, her first heartbreak. Casting that role wasn't easy. They needed someone who could play tough, playful, and quietly tragic, all in 1 hour. Storm Reid auditioned with one line: "You ever play Mortal Kombat?" The showrunners said her delivery was so natural, so unscripted, that they cast her before she even finished the scene. She and Bella Ramsey bonded off-screen too. They played pranks, shared playlists, and helped each other rehearse late into the night. You can't fake chemistry like that, not even with 100 takes. Fact 13. The infected design took 400 hours per costume. Each infected we see on screen, especially the clickers and bloaters, required hundreds of hours of prosthetic work. HBO didn't want CGI monsters. They wanted real, terrifying, tactile creatures. The prosthetics team sculpted dozens of silicone layers for every performer. Fungal ridges, collapsing jaws, bursting veins. Then came the paint. Then came the blood. The bloater in episode 5? That suit weighed 88 pounds and took over 5 hours to apply. The performer could only wear it for short bursts before overheating. In between takes, he sat in an air-conditioned tent filled with popsicles. The apocalypse is brutal, and apparently, sweaty. Fact 14. Ellie's knife was based on a real historical blade. That switchblade Ellie carries, not just a prop, it was modeled after a mid-20th century Italian stiletto, commonly used in World War II. The blade was chosen specifically to reflect Ellie's character. Compact, fast, dangerous, something that looks innocent until it strikes. Bella Ramsey trained with a real one for months, learning how to flip, draw, and strike with stage precision. The final prop was dulled, of course, but the technique was 100% real. And when Ellie holds it out in that stance, you believe it because the blade may be fake, but the fear is real. Fact 15. The show broke a record for fungus props. Yes, you read that right. Fungus. Properties. Over the course of Season 1, the set design team handcrafted more than 70,000 individual fungus pieces to decorate walls, floors, ceilings, and infected bodies. Each spore strand was sculpted from latex, airbrushed by hand, and tagged for placement. They even had a fungus map, a chart tracking which style of growth appeared in which location. Why? Because different regions have different humidity. And in The Last of Us, even the fungus has lore. One crew member joked, "It's the most high-maintenance mold we've ever dealt with." Fact 16. The show used over 300 pounds of real moss. Forget CGI vines and green screen gardens. The Last of Us wanted the world to feel alive and decaying at the same time. So the production crew ordered more than 300 pounds of live moss from specialty botanical suppliers. They then transplanted it into abandoned buildings, alleyways, and subway sets, where it thrived under mist machines and controlled lighting. But real moss is picky. It grew too fast in some scenes, too slow in others. One episode had to be reshot after the moss turned brown mid-take. Turns out, even plants have opinions about lighting. Fact 17. Ashley Johnson, the original Ellie, plays Ellie's mother. In episode 9, we finally meet Ellie's mother, Anna. She's brave, desperate, and heartbreakingly human. She's also played by Ashley Johnson, the original voice and motion capture actor for Ellie in the video games. The casting wasn't just fan service, it was a full circle moment. Ashley gives birth to Ellie in the show, and metaphorically, she gave birth to Ellie in the game. That final scream? Not just acting, that was legacy. Fact 18. The infected were inspired by zombie ants and cancer cells. When designing how the Cordyceps fungus spreads, the creators didn't just rely on horror tropes. They turned to biology textbooks and oncology journals. The idea wasn't that the infection spreads like a virus. It spreads like a tumor, growing tendrils, invading tissue, rewiring the host. This led to the show's infamous mouth tendril scene, a kiss of death between infected and victim. It horrified some fans, fascinated others, but the science behind it? Disturbingly real. Fungus doesn't knock. It just grows inside you. Fact 19. One set was so realistic the city filed a complaint. While filming a quarantine zone scene in downtown Calgary, the crew transformed several blocks into a post-apocalyptic nightmare. Burnt cars, crumbled signage, fungal overgrowth. It was so convincing that multiple residents called the city to report abandoned war zones and public safety hazards. By the time officials arrived, the set was already being torn down. But the point was made. The Last of Us didn't need CGI to build terror. It just needed good art direction and the ability to freak out an entire neighborhood. Fact 20. The final episode mirrors the game, frame by frame. The Season 1 finale doesn't just follow the game's story. It recreates it, shot for shot. From the operating room standoff to the blood-streaked hallway escape, entire sequences were framed exactly like the PlayStation Classic. Why? Because the ending isn't just narrative, it's emotional trauma. And Neil Druckmann, who directed both the game and the finale, wanted to preserve every heartbeat of it. The result? A finale that made gamers cheer, cry, and, let's be honest, reopen old emotional wounds. Some choices don't need fixing, they just need to be honored. Bonus fact, one prop made an actor cry off camera. On the final day of filming, the props team gave Bella Ramsey a gift. Ellie's backpack, aged and worn, filled with all of Ellie's key items. Inside were her joke book, switchblade, Walkman, and a photo of Riley. Not a printed one, an actual photo, developed on old school film, taken during filming of episode 7. Bella reportedly sat down on set, opened the bag, and burst into tears. They weren't tears of sadness. They were the end of a journey, because for one quiet moment, Ellie wasn't a role. She was real. This is how you survive the end of the world. The Last of Us isn't just about monsters. It's about memory. It's about the people we hold on to when everything else crumbles. The jokes we tell. The lies we need. The rage that keeps us going. It's a story about how far we'll go to protect what's left. Even when what's left is broken. The show didn't just adapt a game. It adapted grief, hope, and the hardest decision a father could ever make. So if this infected rundown blew your mind, hit like, smash subscribe, and drop a comment with your favorite scene, your favorite pun, or your favorite fungus. Because in a world of zombies and clones and end-of-days chaos, only one show had the guts to whisper, "It's okay, you can still feel." And that's what made it human.